Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Tim, my man. May the fourth Hey, folks, welcome back to Cliff's Edge, to our show from the Queen City, the lovely Radio City, Cincinnati. I appreciate your being here, as always. Great show today. You may have seen, not on the most uplifting topic, but what is these days, some of the horrible aspects of the Trump administration. Particularly, we're going to be talking about what we're doing with ICE, which we might as well maybe just start calling the Stasi. Or something of that sort, but we have a secret police with masks, and they have no identification, and they just expect you to get in their paneled vans with them. Sounds like the Jeffrey Epstein thing, if you want to be honest. I mean, I don't get in a van with anybody. They don't identify themselves. They're anti-constitutional. They are un-American. They're not following our laws. And whereas we should be honestly marching in the streets every day over just that. They're grabbing American citizens now, though. It shouldn't even take that. They just grabbed one. That's the thumbnail you may have seen. On the show, David Schuster will be joining me in a bit. We're going to have a awesomely intelligent and just a great guy, Dr. Jeff Grammer, is going to join us, former colonel, decorated, a psychiatrist who's treated soldiers at Walter Reed, and can speak a little bit to the psychology and the dangerousness of those who are now recruiting for ICE. If you purposely recruit the guys with the extra Y chromosomes, you get what you expect to get. You don't get a professional organization that are actually peacekeepers. You get people that escalate, which is what happened in the incident that I referred to, of course. But I want to start with somebody who finally is getting angry enough about all of this and do a little bit of a rant here to kick it off, which is we've all been saying to ourselves, when, there are some Democrats. Gavin Newsom more recently has done a great job. Jasmine Crockett is always Jasmine Crockett, and Eric Swalwell's Eric Swalwell. But where is the sustained anger? Every single day it's something new. We find out that our nuclear weapons and their facilities aren't being retrofitted because Trump needs the money for his $500 million bribe. I mean, jet, right? I mean, the things they put in their big ugly bill, cutting Medicaid. And again, I don't believe in using euphemisms. They're killing people by taking away health care. They're starving children. But again, they needed that first year tax break on the airplanes, on private planes, which they've now added in there. So Elon Musk and Peter Thiel are okay. I mean, they're not okay mentally, and they're probably at some point going to be partially cyborg, because that's what Thiel is willing to do to live forever. And they've got all sorts of other problems, by the way, too. But again, these are the priorities we've set as a country. But finally, is the camera angle intentional? So my camera angle stinks, according to Nick. Thank you. You look at the audio, you don't look at the camera. The camera angle is not intentional. Oh my God, can you see my face now from the right place? All right, well, we fixed that in the middle. So that is good. I took a look at the chat. So you're all laughing at me because I was looking down. Damn it, I'm making this serious point, and now I have to be self-deprecating about my technological knowledge, which is the equivalent of a 2-year-old. Okay, doesn't change what I'm about to say. Cory Booker stood up last night, and you may have seen it, and finally, I think, spoke for a lot of us. And a few other Democrats have had enough. And he was in a debate with Amy Klobuchar, another Democrat, who I like. I've met before, nice person, but this isn't a time for being nice. This isn't a time for being accepting. This isn't a time for saying, I'd rather just sort of get along, even if they're abrogating the Constitution. This isn't a time. This is a time when people stand up and they protect democracy. And if that means you have to be a little bit nasty, a little bit mean, a little bit in their faces, that's what you got to be. Okay? They're arresting Democrats who are even trying to check out their ICE facilities. So Cory Booker stood up and made a speech, a rousing speech, calling other Democrats into action and saying, essentially, we're being complicit. And, I'd like to give him a round of applause for that, because in the end, if you're not doing every single damn thing to expose these guys, if you're not fighting them, I wrote a Substack on this the other day when I wrote about Roy Cooper getting in the race in North Carolina, which is so important. No more of the poll tested crap. Show people your passion. Show people how horrified you are by what they're doing. Again, they are starving children. They are taking away health care from human beings that need it to live. They are picking up people off the streets. They are doing 1,000 other things, which we can't even begin to name. But they're in our name that they're doing them. Okay? They're horrific. And this, the corruption is just mind-boggling. So Cory Booker, if I can be smart enough to find where this is, I can show it to you. And of course, I probably won't be, but we'll try, because sometimes Cliff gets it right. Share a screen. That's nice. Yeah, I can share a screen. All right, cool. Cory Booker speech. Cory Booker goes ballistic. That's the one we want. All right, guys. Let's go for this.
To me, is the problem with Democrats in America right now. Is we're willing to be complicit to Donald Trump to let this pass through when we have all the leverage right now there is to say, if you're as passionate about police as we are, then pass bills out of this body that will help the police officers in Washington, that will help the police officers in Illinois, that will help the police officers in New Jersey, that will help the police officers in New York. Don't be complicit to the President of the United States, who we both know doesn't understand that language. Oh, please, don't hurt blue states. We are standing at a moment where our president is eviscerating the Constitution of the United States of America, and we're willing to go along with that today. No, not on my watch. I stand against this. It is a violation of our Constitution for the President of the United States to ignore the will of Congress and decide which states are eligible to grants and which are not. Well, we know something in New York and New Jersey. I was a Newark elected official when 9/11 happened. I saw my first responders charging into those buildings. I know what police officers do every day. My amendment was just called the poison pill. That's ridiculous. Well, my amendment does. It says the police officers in New Jersey are just as important as the police officers in North or South Dakota.
Even if they didn't vote for Trump. I know, crazy.
In New York are just as important as the police officers in Texas. It says the police officers in California are just as important as the police officers in Alabama. Why would we go along with a president who is violating our Constitution time and time again? When in the history of this body, Democrats and Republicans used to stand up for their turf? These could easily pass. Put a simple amendment that says, you know what, you can play games however you want, President Trump, but when it comes to resources for police officers, no games. Today, I stand and fight for the Constitution. I stand and fight against this president. And heck yeah, I'm going to stand and fight for the police officers from the great state of New Jersey. I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
The senator from Minnesota.
Mr. President, I want to thank
Sure, we'll figure out a way to shut this off sooner or later. All right, look, guys. And that I don't even think, I thought they were going to give even the best part where he really lost it and really, really got angry. But that was a pretty good, the fact that he was standing up to his own party, and that was a pretty good sort of summation of how so many of us feel out here. Why do we think people like Mamdani are winning? Why do we think there's this populist rage on the left? Because again, these are not normal times. Okay, this is not a time when you say, "Oh well, yeah, let's split the difference." Oh yeah, blue slips over. Let's debate that over which judges get on there. They have systematically over 30 years now, longer than that, have stolen every bit of power. They've stolen Supreme Court justices. Mitch McConnell has not followed the Constitution to allow people to have hearings. Okay, he got behind Citizens United to dump money into our system. You know the list of offenses. It isn't just Donald Trump. Donald Trump's the end result of everything they've done since Reagan to destroy the middle class, okay? To allow stock buybacks instead of making, so for their shareholders instead of putting it into their workers. CEOs ballooning pay, middle class being destroyed. They are attacking us every day, constantly. And we are not fighting back in a way that right now, when people are disappearing on streets and losing basic benefits, and we're creating a two-tier society, it doesn't resemble the economic society we were from the 30s to the 80s. It doesn't resemble a democracy anymore. Louis Brandeis, great Supreme Court justice, once said, you can either have a great disparity of wealth or you can have a democracy. You can't have both. Well, Peter Thiel said, you can either have capitalism or democracy. You can't have both. I choose capitalism. I like Louis Brandeis' version better. They're taking Peter Thiel's version. Understand where we are and get that fucking angry about it, because you need to be. And it is insane to me that there aren't more of these folks getting this angry about all of this. It is an attack on our decency every day. Donald Trump's basic existence. He can't even go to a golf course in Scotland, waddling himself across it without having his having his caddy dump a ball outside of the rough, because something as small as that he can't cheat on. He cheats on everything. Ask some wives and some Taj Mahal workers and contractors and everybody else. Okay, enough. I want to see more like this from Cory Booker. I want Democrats to stand up and make this point. I want these elected representatives to make this point in the streets. We're out in the streets. We're yelling about this. We don't have security. We're just fighting for our country. I want my boys growing up in a country that is a democracy, or it won't be this one. I'm tired of it. So Cory Booker channeled all of us right there, and I want to see more. This needs to be constant, because when you get up and you speak there, you are communicating to the American people how you feel and how they should feel. And if you're okay with it, you're kind of telling them, it's okay. But don't tell us during the campaign last year that this was the greatest threat to democracy, which it is, since the Civil War, and then, or certainly since the Great Depression and World War II, and then act like everything's just fine and good afterwards. Enough. Cory Booker was awesome. And I'll look for other versions of that to replay again later. David is here. I'm running a minute or two late. Dr. Jeffrey Grammer, Jeff, if I can call him that, we'll see, has joined us early. And so I'm going to invite both of them in to join me on this. And then after this, we'll get to talking about some of the immigration stuff that you saw in the thumbnail that is repulsive as anything I've ever seen. David, welcome. I'll calm down a little bit.
No, that's look, passions matter. And hey, Dr. Grammer, nice to have you on the program, and nice to meet you.
Good to meet you as well. Thank you both for having me on today.
I'm sorry I didn't get you. I tried not to curse, Jeff, because you're a reasonable, respectable man, unlike me. But I apologize because anger overtook me at a moment there. I don't know how else sometimes to express it, that when I see kind of a lackadaisical attitude from not everybody. There have been some terrific Democrats. I named a few. There's a whole bunch more. But, you write about this in your Salon piece. We maybe should get to that. But first, should it be Dr. Grammer? Should I call you Jeffrey? Jeff, you tell me. I don't, you can call me, schmuck if you want. I'm good with anything. So you tell me what's good for you.
Jeff is just fine. If I can call you Cliff and call you David, that would be perfect.
Yeah, but just full disclosure, my parents, both my mom and dad, have PhDs, so I have a certain respect for either PhDs or real medical doctors, although PhDs are real doctors, or doctors of law. So, but having said that, we'll call you Jeff.
And I would say the same thing, not with my parents, but the fact that I was a history PhD, but then dropped out before writing my dissertation. So I know how hard it is to end up with that doctor. And so don't want it to come as any lack of respect. I'm only saying Jeff because I've known you before, and I want to make sure you're cool with it. But in any case, part of what I was talking about there obviously was what we've got going on in our streets, and it is and you wrote about this in Salon, and it is the kind of thing. And again, here I go again, not introducing you. Okay, retired Army colonel, decorated, a psychiatrist who has helped God knows how many military personnel who've come back at Walter Reed, a congressional candidate that we could only be lucky enough to have. And as I believe I said to you in an email, I can reveal what I said in emails. Billy Joel has talked about only the good die young. I feel like only the good don't go to Congress. You're almost too good of a person. You literally are the person that belongs in Congress. I look at Jim Jordan and Lauren Boebert. Okay, I won't continue that sentence. And so with that said, you wrote this great piece on Salon. I would like you to talk about it because what we're seeing, the trauma to children, the cruelty, the viciousness, I think of this line, I'll repeat it later if I do a rant on this, from the movie Platoon, where there's one point where they're massacring Vietnamese civilians, and Charlie Sheen, back when he was a little more sane, stops and just says, "Don't you get it, man? They're human beings." And that keeps popping in my head when I see these ICE guys posing and smiling. And so now I'm going to shut up and let you talk. It just gets me so worked up. Go ahead, go ahead, Jeff.
No, listen, I think it's a great time to be passionate. I think it's a great time to be animated and curse, because this is not normal. Right? We haven't had anything like this in my lifetime and any time in sort of historical memory within this country. So ICE is just one kind of aspect of what is becoming emblematic of just day-to-day life in America. And you're right. I cannot think of a time in history where dehumanizing entire populations resulted in anything good, right?
No.
That is a path to descent to suffering and pain. And so within ICE, what we've seen is this sadistic cruelty. There are ways that you can detain people, and law enforcement studies that and practices it and drills it. And they have rules for that and oversight if it's not followed. But wearing masks and sunglasses and baseball caps with no name badges, no badge numbers, jumping out of an unmarked vehicle, throwing someone to the ground because of their skin color or because of their accent, and no other evidence but that, and then throwing them in the van and taking them to God knows where. This is not normal. And what I wrote about in the piece is we are all witnessing these horrific videos of cruelty. Kids crying in the background. I don't know if you all saw recently, but there was one where
Yes.
they literally pulled a guy out of his car with his kid in a car seat in the back seat. Broke the window.
Yeah, I've seen. I don't even know. Again, I've got boys. David's got children. I can't help but when I see those think of what that would do to my kids, and it enrages me.
Absolutely. So what I wrote about in this piece, and I'll kind of let the discussion follow after this, is think about this. We make decisions for a lot of reasons, but mainly two major ways: either to alleviate anxiety or to receive reward. And the next generation of ICE agents are going to be drawn to that role, almost certainly not to alleviate anxiety, at least on a superficial level, but the reward. And the reward they're looking for is to participate in the sadistic cruelty that is on TV now. And I think historically, law enforcement attracts people that want to help their communities, want to help their country, whether we agree with some of the stuff that happens or not. Those are honorable kind of initiatives for many of them, not all, but many. But now someone who joins, that's not the recruiting video anymore. It is you get to participate in the dominance of other people in a cruel way. And someone says, I want to do that. What is that person going to be like? Are they going to uphold the laws of the Constitution? Or are they going to uphold the directives of an autocrat? And when push comes to shove,
Or their own impulses, I would say,
Yeah.
just to in the moment. Go ahead. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, you're right. Like someone who enjoys that, and we could talk about that personality style, but someone who enjoys that is very deviant from the typical person. right? And when push comes to shove, if Donald Trump one day wants to flip that switch and move ICE from, detaining people that they think need to be detained into his own private security force to suppress dissent, the kind of people that do that are more likely to follow Donald Trump than the Constitution. And that is something we should all be afraid of, whether you're a citizen, a legal immigrant, or an undocumented immigrant.
Well, I'll say I'm terrified about, Donald Trump, perhaps this being part of a larger plan, that after the migrants, who are they going to go after next? Is it going to be protesters, dissenters, et cetera? The other part, though, about to sort of pick up on what you said is, what does it say about American society in that we've seen the reporting that ICE is somewhat demoralized with the agents that I guess were holdovers are there now. So you have some ICE agents who are leaving because they don't like what they're doing. But what does it say about a society that is able to not only fill their ranks with these psychopaths, if for lack of a better term, but also perhaps even be able to grow it even more? I mean, the idea that there's more people out there who want to actually get paid to dominate and dehumanize other human beings, that there's more of them than there are people who actually believe in the Constitution, believe in basic humanity. What does that say about our society?
Yeah, this is why I think we need checks and balances, right? I mean, at any given point in time, about 1 to 2% of the population is going to have sort of antisocial or criminal-like tendencies. That's just population-based stuff. And when we start to create organizations with unchecked power, where we are self-selecting people with that personality style, then it becomes a self-reinforcing function, if you will, right? We see the same thing even in office. I mean, funny, you were talking about Cory Booker beforehand, which, I really enjoyed his speech. I thought it was great. But we're seeing anyone left on the GOP side who actually felt a moral compass, they've been forced out or they've left.
Yep.
Right? So help us all, like God help us all, if we start seeing the Democrats doing the same thing where they're like, I can't do this anymore. Because the people we need to stay are the people who have their moral conviction and aren't forced out either by fear or just by sheer fatigue. And the same thing with ICE. Like there's a real risk that over time this gets worse and worse.
And I would think, again, you could very much see that, because those of us who even do what we do, it can be exhausting from day to day. There are times, David, myself, I'm sure you with your work, we need a break, because it can get to you. The depression from, when you see such horrible things happening, if you have any conscience at all, to innocent human beings. The stuff, my God, you brought up that one, but I've seen others. When I see the looks on these kids' faces, when this is happening to their parents, I'm just like, this is happening in my country. And again, I'm not, I'm not some Pollyannish. I understand. I know I did study history, even though I was obviously too weak to write my dissertation. But but
Not sure I would say
Jim,
that, but okay.
I'm just being self-deprecating. But Jim Crow. You think of stuff like Emmett Till. I'm not claiming this has never happened on this level. The South had a lot of this for 100 years. I'm not claiming we've never seen anything like that. But my point is just, at this point in our history where we thought we'd gotten to this point, and I guess too many of us got too optimistic, right? We elected not just a black president, but one with the name Barack Hussein Obama. We thought we really had gotten somewhere, and here we are, back to it feels like 1920s almost economic policies, or what was in the 50s, and I'm sorry folks, it's a slur and I will put it in quotes, but Operation Wetback, as they called it. It's repulsive, and so we do have to take breaks, and it worries me because there are some Senate members and House members that may just be like, I can't do this anymore. And they need to band together. And this is one of the reasons we need more like Booker, because courage is contagious. And if you see one person do it, others will stand up and do it. We need more. That's my simple statement on that.
No, I think, there's this phenomenon called learned helplessness. And if you inflict pain onto this particular study that kind of studied this was dogs, and it was a terrible study, by the way, but when you inflict pain,
that one in the where they put them in the boxes, and I had to learn that in my psych. I almost was a psych major. Oh, that one always kind of upsetting.
Oh yeah, no, the old psychiatric experiments, psychological experiments were terrible. But in this one, they would put a dog in a box and give it an electric shock that it couldn't escape from. And eventually the dog would move from trying to escape to lying down and just enduring the shock. And that applies in people too, this idea of learned helplessness. And in my opinion, we are actually witnessing some of this cruelty, not just within ICE, but within sort of this administration's tactics. There's a cruelty just to the day-to-day tenor of dialogue, if you will. And I'm afraid or worried that that is to bring up this learned helplessness within the opposition to the point that there is no more resistance left. Right. And the more dramatic the cruelty, the more people will eventually shirk down and stop trying to defend themselves. So you're absolutely right. Then courage comes from banding together and having that safety in numbers of kind of common thought and purpose.
The resistance, of course, is what keeps a lot of us sane. It keeps us going. And I see the resistance sometimes being effective, whether it's a judge that has blocked ICE in 13 counties in California from just willy-nilly grabbing people, or whether it's people who are bringing out their cameras and yelling at the ICE agents, you need a warrant, do you have a warrant, or trying to protect migrants who run into a surgical center on private property and are essentially trying to assert constitutional rights. How much hope does that aspect of this, the pushback, the resistance, give you?
You know, I actually think as long as we continue to fight, there is a hope that we can take back our democracy, right? And, you know, I often get asked, like, I try to spend some time on Twitter, and that is a tough battleground.
Spend more time, honestly, at Substack, where they purposely use. There are some horrific people on there, but they use the algorithm because they, in a way, on the notes function, so that they pair you up with people who are like you. Because the model is to create more, not to create controversy, so that people are fighting. So just a little point of, because I go to Twitter here and there, but I can't spend nearly as much time there either. It's the worst dregs of society. It's just
it's brutal. But I go to basically this is the way that I can be that person standing in front of the ICE agent, recording them saying, show me your warrant.
Yep.
It is my way to show, because honestly, there are some people, you know, some estimates, 25% or so of that kind of MAGA crowd, if you will, that wants us to shirk into the corners and stop resisting.
sure.
And I want to stand before them and say, I'm not going away. Like that will never happen. We need the Cory Bookers, right? We need the Gavin Newsoms of this country to stand up and say, you know, like I loved it when Gavin Newsom said, you know, you want to arrest me? Come get me, tough guy. That's the kind of talk we need from people at this point in time to show we will not surrender to this burgeoning autocracy.
Yep.
Jeff, there's I've been surprised, frankly, that with as aggressive as ICE agents have been, that there hasn't been more violence. I mean, there have been some, I guess, ICE agents who have been shot at and police officers who have been shot, but I've been surprised in some ways that we haven't seen sort of mass carnage in response. So we haven't seen, people who are being targeted pull out weapons and just open fire. But are we getting to that point? Is that sort of the natural response when this happens so frequently and with such dehumanization that eventually ICE is going to try to grab somebody who's not just going to sort of put their arms behind their back?
Yeah, I was funny. I was just talking about this very thing. I think you're spot on, right? And I don't think that's an accident.
They want it, don't they?
They want it. Exactly. That gives them the permission to take the gloves off and to actually engage in violence even more deliberately against U.S. citizens. And kudos to all the people that are resisting, and I would encourage them to continue to do so. Resist within the confines of the law, but show the restraint where you don't cross the line to give them the excuse to then respond with absolute violence. Because I think when we cross that threshold, then, you know, there are all sorts of scenarios that can play out like martial law that would completely change the dynamic. And I hope that the next election is decided by votes and not by bloodshed. And I think that's still what's going to happen. But boy, we are not too far off from what other countries have gone through, where that path back to democracy is a lot more perilous.
Well, yeah, and that's honestly my worry here, because realistically, there's the different sides of me. there's the fantasy side of what I wish would happen to some of these people, because they're horrific, terrible people, and I keep that aside. To the reality side, which is we need to be better than them. We need to not give them an excuse to do the worst to us, to become autocratic. So to anybody listening, absolutely, this is an endorsement of nonviolence. Do not, I mean, I'm not telling you if you need to put your body in between, like we've seen in a few cases, them and someone they're trying to grab so that person can get away or something. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying don't punch though, don't hit, don't, none of that. Do not attack them. But at the same time, as I'm saying all of this, again, having worked on, for Mayor Bloomberg's group on guns for years, I just know too much about how many guns are out there. And, we've created this witch's brew where this is, so that we're in this situation, and it's inevitable. It already has happened, as David said, where some people have shot at them. What worries me is that I don't see how we get through these guys consistently showing up with masks on, without identifying themselves, and some counter violence not happening. And so I think what we all need to do is be prepared for that scenario too, and how we respond and what we say and what we message and what we do, because I hope and pray it doesn't happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to. It doesn't mean it's going to be some large scale case. Just be one person, shoot somebody in the leg or the ankle, or kick somebody, happens to hit them in the wrong place and they fall over, and they, and maybe they have a concussion or whatever it ends up being. But something like that, when you send these guys in, is inevitable. So I think we do need to start thinking about how we're going to respond when that inevitably happens.
It's interesting because your call for restraint, I think, is excellent, and a lot of people have been doing that, and it's been working. I mean, man, if there was ever going to be a time that I saw this happening, it was the initial deployment of military resources out to L.A. and I actually wrote about that on Substack as well, about some of the problems, how when you militarize response to a protest, you increase the risk of violence, and there's a psychological reason why that is. But people didn't take the bait, and I credit the mayor of LA as well as the governor of California for helping just set the tone of like, listen, protest, we're here supporting you, but don't get violent, and that worked. But the other part to this is where you started this whole piece, which is on people like Cory Booker. Because one of the things that will drive people to violence is when they no longer feel that they have
Exactly.
And I think, the politics of usual, the niceties that would happen where we don't, we speak often in riddles in politics and so forth, and there's hidden innuendo, that's gone right now. And if we don't see a pivot from some of our elected leaders into a much more candid mechanism or method of communication, then I actually think in some ways that lower tenor of speech increases the risk of violence, because people feel that they're losing advocacy and they're not being heard.
I don't know if that's something. I'll go ahead, David, but I'll say quickly, if you have the much better background to write it, so I will implore you to write that piece. If you don't, I may, just because somebody has to write that piece and explain to our elected officials that if they do not at least represent the anger, the fear, the rage at what these people are doing to our country, then it's going to come out in other places, that we'd rather have it not come out.
Hey, Jeff, tell us about the congressional race. Which congressional district is it? Who are your opponents? What type of district in terms of political leanings has it been traditionally?
So this was last year, 2024. I ran in the Democratic primary in Maryland's 6th district, which is sort of Montgomery County, Frederick, and then all of Western Maryland. And honestly, I had a great group of folks that helped me out. Cliff and I worked together some on that as well, and I appreciate that, getting some advice from him.
Sure.
It was, as a citizen candidate, entering into the world of politics is a little bit like walking into the cockpit of a plane and being like, I can fly this. So I learned a lot. I will say that I left the race early and endorsed April McLean Delaney. That was the right decision for the district and the right decision for the country. She was the best candidate, had the best chance of winning, and she did in fact win the general election against her very extremist Republican opponent. And she's been doing a good job fighting hard for the 6th district. So I'm at peace with that. I'm very passionate about healthcare in this country. I think there are ways to fix healthcare. One of the slogans we used was, I think Congress needs a psychiatrist. And I would have loved to be able to help sponsor some legislation to basically hold insurance companies accountable when they obstruct care. Right now, you and your doctor can say, hey, I've got cancer. I want to try this new chemotherapy agent. And your insurance company can say, we don't think it's medically necessary. And there's not a lot you can do. I want to see that changed. So, I think if the window opens it up again, and there's a need for someone like myself to enter the race, I'd very much like to do that. But I do think the 6th district is being well represented by April and her team, and I will do everything I can to continue to support them in the 6th district.
Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, I mean, for a lot of people who enter Congress, and let's suppose that the congresswoman steps aside and you have an opportunity, there's such built-in incentives, though, right now for members of Congress to go to the extremes in order to be booked on a cable channel, in order to raise money. The more extreme you are, the easier it is in some sense. And
although, David, I'm not sure there are any more slots left because I think Lindsey Graham has booked them all for the next month. So I just want to make sure you knew that.
I've heard some people say, the way to fix this is campaign finance reform, that you can't do anything without taking the money out of politics. If you were able to somehow get in there with, do you see it that way? I mean, how do you solve the institutional problem of more extremism, not less, in terms of where we are with our representation?
Well, there is good legislation that's been proposed to help, protect voter rights and to, correct the Citizens United ruling and overcome gerrymandering, right? And I think more than anything, dark money certainly has a big role in this. But with gerrymandering at the extreme, politicians choose their voters, not the other way around. Yeah. And in that case, when you have to win the primary to make it to the general, that ends up self-selecting out for more extremist candidates for sure. Now,
I'm sorry. No, I thought you were done. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh, I was just going to say, the 6th district where I ran was interesting because it's a purple district. It's a D+2, and it always is somewhat in play every election cycle. And I would like to think of myself as more of a moderate candidate. I ran on sort of a pro-union, pro-law enforcement, pro-military, but also pro-individual rights kind of platform. Let people be people and be happy and be healthy. That's kind of like this simple thing. And I think in that particular district that can fit, but there are some like Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, whoever runs against her, it's just, boy, that district is locked in. So that basically, as long as she wants to run, she can, and it shouldn't be that way. I also think the other problem is special interest. And what the heck, when you go through and as a primary candidate, you have to interview with all these, political action committees, so forth, hoping to get their endorsement and their support from their members. But boy, like a single issue, like for me and on climate and the environment, I was not going to get endorsements from certain groups for no other reason than I supported clean nuclear energy. New nuclear technology is incredibly efficient and safe. It's a lot different than the nuclear energy of old. And we just cannot. And
other countries, France uses it, like a number of other Western European countries. I'm not saying I'm not going to sit around and dance and say I love nuclear energy, but again, we can either have slogans or we can have solutions. And what I like about you is, listen, if that is a solution to getting rid of fossil fuels and we do it in a safe, regulated way, there just are things we're going to have to do to get to the places we want to get.
That's right. But if you come out with that kind of practical, politically inconvenient position, you're not going to get the support. And we've got to fix that. It's funny. We talk about in psychiatry, all or none thinking. People are all good, all bad. It's all one thing or another. And we have that kind of immaturity of thinking in politics. And I had someone, send me a private email criticizing April over a decision she made, April Delaney. And it's like, man, you don't have to agree with 100% of what she does. But do you agree with most of what she does? And we've got to get rid of this idea that if you're not 100% aligned, I'm rejecting you outright.
This is the social media generation, and that is the problem, is that this culture is developed and it is killing us on the left. It's on the right too, but we know they're a bunch of ghouls. But on the left, I mean, I'm sorry, somebody doesn't have to agree with you, as you just said, on everything. I disagree with various groups in the Democratic Party on certain issues. I don't even think I fully disagree with them on anything. There's just variations. And when we get to the point in a democratic republic where there's no longer such things as nuance and context and debate and coming together and saying, you know what, like I may disagree with you somewhat on this, but if on this one, you get 70% of what you want, I get 30% of what I want. Next time it's the other way around. And we've lost the whole project of democracy. And so I speak out about this a lot. I don't care if I piss some people off. And I think most of the folks on the left are very good about this, but there are one or two far left factions where if you just don't agree down the line on everything, and I think people just need to learn the Democratic Party to ignore them, because some of these groups do not represent the people they claim to be representing. They, a few different folks have written about this, the DC groups that come out and say, well, we represent this group or we represent that group. And then you see in the polling, that particularly in cases of working class African Americans, working class Latinos, do not agree with some of the positions the groups that supposedly represent them are taking. And so I think, we need people listening to where voters are. Screw the groups, is what I would say, unless they are in the right place. And I'm glad that you did what you did and you stood up for what you believed in, because the truth of the matter is at least you got that out there, so it could be discussed, right? You got an intelligent idea out there. But I am but a small farmer. I'm just kidding. But I have this Substack that for some reason blew up into a big thing, and that's great. And so I look at it as I have the luxury now. I'm going to, in every way I can, going to try to support good candidates. And I don't care. You don't have to agree with me on everything. You know what I mean? Like to think anybody ever would is crazy. And again, do we want to be MAGA? Do we want to be, I must agree with everything Trump says or I am out?
Right.
No, that's authoritarianism. It is self-defeating. So I'm so glad that you're saying this. We have somebody in there, nice, a lot of use, Mud. That's a good name. Compromise and subtlety as well. And yes, I meant that when I was saying 30% this, 70% that. Compromise is essential. But I like what you're saying about subtlety. I mean, again, you don't have to always be in everybody's faces about everything. This is how legislation has always gotten passed. And, there are times for fighting, and then there are times where you can get something passed. Joe Biden made certain mistakes, among them, I would say not taking the threat of right-wing authoritarianism seriously enough and fighting hard enough on that. But legislatively was brilliant and said, okay, well, we're not going to get any of these guys on this COVID bill. So screw them. We're going to pass what we want. We have the votes to get it. But in the infrastructure bill, guess what? Their bridges and tunnels are falling apart too. So we can bring in 10 Republicans in the Senate and get the thing passed. It's about the context of knowing when you can agree with people, even if you find those people abhorrent, but you need to come together with them on stuff. And other times when screw them. And you need to be able to be somebody who's got the flexibility to know when to do that.
Yeah, Cliff. I mean, I think what you and David do in messaging is so critical now, because we've seen less and less engagement from traditional media and traditional news for people to consume their information, right? The old days of opening up the New York Times at the breakfast table and reading through things, that articles that take about 10 minutes, those days have gone for a lot of people into just headlines.
That line's the cat litter for me. Sorry, but
yeah. So, now we have to find new ways of communicating. And I think the Democratic Party needs to do a lot more in trying to get across their messaging, because what the GOP has done, or particularly Donald Trump and MAGA has done, is they've hijacked this sort of meme-based communication where things are just these sort of single phrases of extremist thought, and all the subtlety is lost.
Right.
So this podcast that you guys do, or this, what do you call it? Live stream that you guys do. Sorry.
You can call it, honestly, whatever the hell you like. Just make up a name and call it that. We're good.
But this is the kind of stuff that will help educate people into the nuance to allow them to make much more mature decisions. If we stay in the world of that all or none simplicity, we're going to be making decisions like we were 7 years old. And that's not going to help the country.
Jeff, I want to bring this back to where we started, your salon piece about the ICE raids. You have spent most of your career essentially healing soldiers who have PTSD, healing people who have psychological problems. You're probably better versed than anybody in terms of the healing that's going to need to happen for these families that have had their loved ones taken away before their eyes. What can we as a society do, assuming that the best thing happens over the next 2 and 4 years? Democrats win back the House and Senate, win the White House, ICE stops this nonsense. What do we need to do as a society, though, to repair the damage that's been done with these families? And on a larger picture, do we need some sort of truth and reconciliation commission type of scenario to heal our politics and the political damage that's been done?
It's a great question and a complicated answer. I won't do it justice here, but I will try. If you look at the end of the Vietnam War, during the Vietnam War and near the end, one of the things that exacerbated the phenomenon of post-traumatic stress in returning service members was that when they came back home, they were spit upon.
Right.
And they were outcast. There was no friendly quarter. And we had a lot less of that and almost none of that at the beginning of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Knowing that you can come to a safe harbor of your community who's there to support you and what you've been through and is grateful that you exist as a human being and what you offer to society, I think is one step for this. The other is accountability, like you said. If the next election restores democracy and we kind of get back to the idea of making people healthy and happy in this country and equity for all and so forth, if we don't go back and hold people accountable who broke the law, who clearly broke the law, right, then the people who have been harmed by this are going to feel a lack of justice. And one of the things that happens with trauma, is not just the biological consequences or even the psychological symptoms, but there's an existential crisis that can come with that. How do I see the world? Is the world genuinely good and on my side? Or does the world really just see me as an object to consume for its own machinations? So I think, they have to have access to care. We've got to have a society that brings them all back. But man, there needs to be a reconciliation for all the wrong that was done. And I don't mean just senseless retribution, not that at all. But if you broke the law during this era, then there needs to be a reckoning for that.
I mean, again, I will always go back to, and I point out various weaknesses. I forgot before also to say, as I try to remember to always, disclose that I wrote ads for Joe Biden in 2020. Now that shouldn't matter because I was being critical in a way, although I did say his legislation was terrific, but I had nothing to do with the administration, just to be clear. But so I brought that up, but in this one, we can go back to Obama, who again, hugely impactful, hugely successful president. And yet that initial decision, I will not look back. Again, every time you don't look back, Gerald Ford pardons Nixon, so he gets away with it. Oops, there's missing minutes from Iran-Contra. Who knows what happened? George H.W. Bush claims he was getting up to go take a pee, so he doesn't know. I mean, honestly, the head of the CIA, that was his excuse for not knowing what was going on, and pardons people. So Iran-Contra has never had. I mean, and these same players just keep coming back. And with Bush, we had them. We had enough information on torture, on rendition.
Right.
Any of this stuff seem familiar right now? It just escalated. And when he said he wouldn't look back, all of these same sociopaths got to hang around. And so I can say I think some of these Democrats that I've just talked about were terrific presidents legislatively, mostly did a very good job on foreign policy. They all created jobs. They all dug us out of Republican holes, on deficits and ridiculous spending and tax cuts for billionaires. But none of them ever could seem to fully grasp that we were watching the rise of an authoritarian movement, and they were usurping power that did not belong to them, and that we needed to act then. And, it has gotten to this point now where it's much more difficult. So I'm just going to say, and I'm going to go forward with what I, along the lines of what I was just saying. And I know you need to go soon, Jeff, and we'll let you go. But I'm even seeing some of it, in our chat here. I saw some people saying stuff like, oh, well, Cory Booker's just trying to grease his palms. And, oh, Cory Booker is just being self-righteous. And I even saw one, Cory Booker is paid by Israel, which I guess now we have to bring that up for everything with everybody. Listen, folks, do you want decent people to win? because we can continue with this. If you like this, we can attack the Cory. Is Cory Booker perfect? Absolutely not. Am I getting married to him? No, that's the beauty of it. I'm choosing as a responsible adult in a democracy. When you're given choices, you choose the better one. You choose the non-fascist.
Cliff, you and I are perfect.
Oh, that's right. We're perfect. I've never done anything wrong at all. My wife couldn't give you a laundry list. Listen, I mean, I'm sorry, and I'm not going to call any individual out in the chat, but if you're just sitting here after Cory Booker's speech and your immediate response is just to insult him, undermine him, say he's sleazy, say he's paid off, do you want to win? Yeah. I mean, again, I got to ask you because he was speaking up at least. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying, but our system sucks and people take money from places to get elected and whatever. You try to find the people that represent your values better. But if you really love what's going on right now, we can just extend to J.D. Vance and then to Pete Hegseth, and this can be the future of our country. Or you can let, pardon again, some of that shit go and support the people that generally are doing the right thing.
Jeff, before we let you go, where can people find you?
Sorry, David, you broke up there.
I was going to say, before we let you go, where can people find you? What's your Substack, Twitter handle, everything else?
Yeah, real easy. It's my name. So if you go to @JeffreyGrammer, you'll find me on Twitter, and Substack is same thing. Jeffrey Grammer, search for that. It'll come right up. And, I'm going to hopefully keep kind of fighting the good fight for messaging.
You have a project coming up. Is it something you want to discuss quickly, or is it not ready? Would you rather wait till later on?
No, listen, I'll give a teaser. I am working with some of the folks that helped me out during the campaign on trying to stand up an organization that's going to help promote health equity and American liberty. You can't have a healthy population without a healthy democracy, right? Plain and simple. And so, since I didn't get into Congress, what I can do is create an organization that has that very mission. And, part of that is just getting support from people. So what I would say is listen, if you are someone out there who wants someone to carry the torch a bit on your behalf to fight for better healthcare and fight for democratic values, please follow me on Twitter and read my Substack and look at me at Blue Sky. And what I'll promise you is I won't, you may not always agree with me and I may not always do what's right, but I will do what I think is the morally right thing to do, even if it's not politically convenient. And Cliff, to your point, and David, to your points, we need people out there doing things because it's right, not because it's good for them.
Yeah.
Yep. And also doing them, it was the same thing, in good faith, which I know you're knowing that you're doing that in, so that I would actually hope in some ways we would disagree in a few things, because we'd be weird if we agreed 100% on everything. No one should agree 100% on everything. My wife and I don't agree 100% on everything.
Cliff, you and I agree on 100%.
A decent amount less. I agree on everything with David Schuster, and that's it, except for the University of Michigan. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Hey,
I know to get David riled up.
Jeff, thanks so much for being on with us. Good luck to you, and do keep us posted on the projects and any future runs for Congress. Our politics and our media needs more of you, not less.
I'll say this quickly, Jeff. Please, we'll have you back on, and we're lucky in that. Our newsletters or whatever we write, it goes out to a pretty large universe. And so if you want to guest post one any one of these times, because I got to know you during the campaign last time, I know your integrity. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but I mean, in terms of integrity, intelligence, like a kind of voice we need out there. We need your voice out there. So please do not hesitate to reach out. Anything, we send out guest columns at least twice a week. I would love to share your work with somebody. If you think it's an important piece, let me know.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll just encourage you to keep up the good fight, keep doing what you're doing, spreading the message, bringing out nuance, letting your listeners know where reality lies and what the threats really are. And back at you, if there's anything I can ever do to help support your cause, just feel free to reach out at any time.
Thank you.
Absolutely will. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, take care. Thank you so much.
You too. Have a great day.
So Cliff, I got to say, I've always loved psychiatrists, but this one man, oh man, I can see why you and Jeff got along so well, because between his psychiatry perspective, between his service to the country, wearing the uniform for the greater good, what a remarkable combination. And he is so thoughtful.
He
And
really is. Yeah.
I keep going back to sort of your initial sort of question about why would a guy this thoughtful want to join the swamp of not only Twitter, but to try to, he wanted to become part of Congress. I mean, Congress is, he's too good in some ways for Congress.
That's the shame of it, is that we shouldn't have to say that, but that's where we are. And again, he was too good to get into Congress because that's he's a terrific guy. The only thing about Twitter is, look, I'm a big believer, as he said, you go everywhere and fight. And I'm still on Twitter. Just for that reason. I almost was going to leave, but I stayed. I don't put a lot up. A lot of it's posts from Substack and these things. But I also, know when the field is against me, right? Like, if Elon Musk was exposed before the election, is making sure that right-wing content is seen 16 times as much, I think that was the number, as anything that's considered liberal content, to the point where we know what he's up to because Grok for a night became a Nazi. You may remember that. I don't see the value in putting as much stuff up there. I'm not saying I'll stop, but you want to put stuff up in places where you know that it will get to people unfiltered. And we do need to reach people. That's what we're trying to do. That's our project. We're at blueamp.co. We've told you folks before, paid subscribers there. We just broke 1,000, which is outstanding. We're giving grants. We were supposed to this week, but we had a couple of people need to sign W-9s and stuff. Our first couple of grants have been awarded and will be coming out, and you'll know some of them and you won't know other ones, but we've got some terrific folks, and we're going to add more. And, we're going to do our best. Like, I won't go gently into that good night is all that I can promise you.
Yeah. And, the other way people can help us in not only sort of subscribing and paid subscribers and following us, but, to Jeff's point, and to your point largely about Twitter, so much of what I have seen first in the news regarding ICE raids, regarding the horrific actions of agents and the taking away of constitutional rights, have been because somebody recorded it and somebody put it on social media, whether it's Twitter or Blue Sky or Facebook or whatnot. And so for as much of a cesspool as Twitter really is, still, every time somebody stands up and says, no, I'm going to stand for our freedom and our liberty, I'm going to record what this ICE agent is doing because it is unlawful, and I'm going to tell the world about it. When you put it on Twitter, when you put it on social media, eventually it starts to sort of go around, and more of us are able to hear about it and see it. And that also helps all of us, I think, collectively start to solve the problem.
I agree. and I know you have to leave in a second. I just am saying to that is absolutely put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
But also put it on Blue Sky.
Yes.
And Substack and Threads and LinkedIn and Facebook,
Yes.
Snapchat if you're there, TikTok. There's no limit to where you should put it because you want to reach. All of us are influencers. If you influence 3 people, you're an influencer.
Yes.
Getting your perspective out there. I used to not put as much on Facebook because I felt like I had some from the past, more conservative friends. It was a personal Facebook page. There definitely are some conservatives in my family. And, I just decided, fuck it. I don't care anymore. I always said that, if we saw a repeat of the 1940s, that I would speak up. And I don't care if I lose friends, and I don't care if people get pissed at me. I'm going to say it how I see it. And I think we just need to do that.
I agree.
So
I'm going to run. You mentioned the kids. One of them's got to be picked up from camp. So
tomorrow, David, who are we talking to on our? I think I need to set up the arrangements. But who is it?
Yeah, and I was going to say I just got an email from his. So we're talking with a Democratic candidate for governor of California. And actually, his press secretary just reached out by email and wants to sort of know what we're going to ask. And I'm like, we're not going to tell you that. No, but we can sort of walk them through sort of general topics. And his name is Richard, right?
Yeah. Was it Klubeck? He's a billionaire. Might as well just come right out and say it. Some of the stuff I've read, I don't know that David and I agree with. So it may be a more, let's put it this way. You may get your money's worth out of this interview. It's only on Substack. We eventually a bunch of days later put it up here, but only live on Substack tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern on Amped Up. Come
and
check
I promise
it out.
all our viewers, by tomorrow, I will know his policy positions inside and out. I will know his hypocrisies right and left. and we will, we'll be polite, but we'll be firm and to the point, and it'll be a fun interview.
That is exactly right. So I've got one more rant. I've got to get out of my system, and then we shall go. David, thank you so much for
Thanks,
being
Cliff.
here.
Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
All right, take care. And this time we'll try to do it with the camera actually, not looking down. I can't help it. I said some of it before, but I look at that picture that we put up earlier of those ICE agents. I look at a picture of this innocent young man, an American citizen, though that shouldn't matter, and how he's treated, being put in a chokehold. And this guy who looked like he could be out of central casting for Mississippi Burning, with his arm around his neck, looking forward. I don't know if he knew there was a camera on or whatever, and smiling. It's fucking sickening. And right now, again, what Cory Booker had to say, we need more Democrats speaking up on this. We need more Democrats going and standing out. Was it 26 Federal Plaza, the one in New York, and these detention centers across the country, and refusing to leave? We need to make demands. There are things Democrats can do, okay? And I'm not an expert in procedure. Far from it. I worked on campaigns. I was not a Hill person. I do know, however, for the Senate to go forward, there needs to, and not have everything dragged out and take days, they need unanimous consent. Withhold it. It is worth it for this. There are masked criminals. Some of them were Jan 6 people, from what I've been told, certainly seem very white supremacist-y, or at least they're white supremacist adjacent, who are wearing masks, sunglasses, not identifying themselves, breaking car windows, pulling people out of cars, showing up at 4th grade schools to yank little girls out of their classrooms, showing up at churches to yank people out of pews. Who the fuck are these people, and what gives them the goddamn right to do that? Not our Constitution, not our laws, not our traditions, nothing here. And if you can't stand up for this, if you can't stand up to these guys, if you can't get angry, if you can't get so much righteous anger, you're ready to burst, I don't know who you are, and I don't honestly understand what it is that you believe in about America. Because that's not my America, and I get it that this stuff's happened plenty in the past. I brought up Jim Crow before, so I'm not some sort of fantasy person here. I'm not somebody who believes, oh, it was all wonderful before. Like go watch Gone with the Wind and see it from their perspective. No. Not that. But we were supposed to be better than this. We were supposed to have improved. We weren't supposed to have to J. Edgar Hoover running an institution. We were supposed to have transparency. We have let the worst human in the United States, and one of the worst in the world, and human I use lightly, this gaudy, gross, chubby, obnoxious, stupid, ignorant fool, okay, take over and have whatever his little sort of whatever his envies are, right? He's angry blue states didn't vote for him. Maryland didn't vote for him. So he allows their water to get poisoned and holds back on FEMA aid. All right. Who does that? This scumbag does. Who doesn't right away say that North Carolina will get the 100%, a swing state even, that voted for him somehow, of the money they're deserved after Hurricane Helene? This schmuck. This is the one who does that. This cruel, barbaric piece of shit. This is not us. All right. And if not enough of us show how horrified, how ridiculous, I need to do it, because here's who I am. All right. I am a white guy. I am middle or upper middle class. I am straight. I can walk around the streets without being harassed. And therefore, it is my responsibility. It is my job as an American to speak out for others who can't. And anybody who's watching this, who's in a similar situation to me, it's yours too. Because we can just walk between the raindrops for the most part in this country. All right. It's not happening to us. It may eventually, but you know what? That's not what you should be thinking about. You should be thinking about that young man who looks like he can't breathe. It reminded me in a sick way. It made me think about, what was Garner? Was that the last name? The one who was choked by a cop in New York. I think what did he do? He took a cigarette or something. It reminded me of what happened in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, where, we had a man who couldn't breathe because a knee was on his neck. No, this needs to stop. And not, this needs to stop. Like, okay, and now I'm done. No. There's a lot of things that can be done. Okay. We need to get in their faces. We need to be, at these events. Okay. And marching up. But we need to also put ourselves in a position where, we may be in harm's way. to put ourselves between these sons of bitches and innocent people who've done nothing but work here a hell of a lot more harder than they have. I just heard recently, and if you don't think it has an effect, by the way, folks, oh no, like there's this terrible epidemic. You know that? Did you know there was an epidemic? Yeah, there's an epidemic. It's that ICE agents are getting depressed now and they're sad. They're not happy with their work. They're not sure. Well, good. Fuck you. If you want to go and destroy other human beings' lives, I hope you're depressed. I hope you look in the mirror and realize you are the garbage that we've talked about throughout history. You would have been right there. You would have been an ordinary German. You would have been one of the Japanese troops taking Americans on death marches in Bataan. All right, you would have been among Milosevic's folks massacring Bosnians. You would have been with the Hutus massacring Tutsis, and I could go on and on and on. You're the worst. So yeah, be ashamed. Quit that job, or maybe from the inside demand that changes be made. I don't really care. But if you're not identifying yourself, if you're not letting people know who you are, and you're driving up to some innocent person who's a U.S. citizen, by the way, and I hope sues the living shit out of you. But if you're doing that and you're pulling them out of a car and freaking them out and freaking out kids in front of their parents, guess what? You're not a good person. You're horrible. You're American History X. You're what we write movies and novels about. You're Darth Vader. You're Thanos. You're the bad guy. Am I the bad guy, as Scarface said? Yes, you're the bad guy. So I don't care. I had a list here, and I don't know where it went because, of course, this always happens, of various things. And I'll come back on another show and another one of these where I'll talk more about specific things we can do. But if you're not speaking out on social media, if you're not showing up to protest, if you're not trying to convince relatives, if you're not horrified by what is going on right now, then I'm not sure what you're doing, particularly, again, if you look like me. All right. There are others that don't have the protection that we have, that we're afforded just by the color of our skin and our sexual preference and whatever else. Be out there. Do not allow this to happen. And the Cory Bookers, who some people attack. Yeah, no one's perfect. Bernie Sanders owned 3 homes. What? Doesn't care about anybody anymore? Because some people use that against him. You can find stuff wrong with AOC, I promise you. I know that everybody who does the judging is perfect, and it's just the judge that aren't. Or maybe we're all fallible human beings just doing our best. And the ones among us who are fighting the hardest, besides Cory Booker, Chris Murphy, who's gotten up and done it, is another senator I think of, Sheldon Whitehouse. Support these people. Courage, as I said, is contagious. Let them know you have their backs. It's a lonely place to be, standing up against an authoritarian when nobody is helping you out. All right? You must stand up to these clowns. You must stand up to these walking balloon animals, these Tommy Tuberville types. Okay? That is the way we get our democracy back. You do it because everything has an influence. People are like, oh, well, what legislation did you offer? Or what did you... Martin Luther King didn't offer any legislation. Not that I'm aware of. I don't think he was in the House and the Senate. Changed everything. Neither did Gandhi, by the way. Go back through U.S. history, through progressives, who all sorts of folks who were not in the system but outside of the system and spoke out, because changing minds changes culture. And when you change culture, that changes politics. People feel they can't vote for certain awful things. They can't support certain awful things. So that's all I'm going to say. That image of what they did to that young man is, there was another one recently where they grabbed a Marine, a father of 3, off the streets, threw him down and took him in. This cannot stand here. It cannot be allowed. These thugs can't be allowed to operate this way. And no one's coming to save us, folks, as past generations have done. Whether, it was the civil rights movement, fighting against the Palmer raids in the 20s, fighting against the Klan in the 20s and the 1860s, and Jim Crow. And, there are a lot of heroes out there, names we know, names we don't. But whether you're the former or the latter, do your part. I know you're here because you care. I think you're here because you care. Be a lot easier not to do anything. You wouldn't have to be here. You can just be off watching something else, but we're here. Let's do what we can. That's really what I have for today. Lots of ranting today because there's a lot going on. You know, I could have just sat here and made all Donald Trump golf jokes, and I was tempted. But let me end this way. You know, first of all, thank the folks. Carl Jacobson, a member for 9 months. Thank you. Sheldon Hughes, as always, gifted a Cliff's Edge membership. Take advantage of that. You know how this goes. We continue with doing what we're doing with support from you guys. So we have 2. Let's see if we can, before you make me do my Jerry Maguire, if we can get 5 folks supporting us. That counts, by the way. If you want to go sign up for Patreon, if you want to sign up we'd love a paid subscriber at Substack, even one out of this. If you're that one person, guess what? At least half of that money ends up going into our pool that we've already put together, the thousands of dollars, many thousands of dollars we put together to support other creators. So do it. Let me know. Or join Patreon. Let me know. But do I have a couple more people here? Come on. On the way out the door. $1.99, folks. 99 cents. If you can support us. If you can show us that you can support us with a super chat. Anything. I'm in the red till Friday. I just saw from Lisa KH. And you know, again, as I always say, please do not do it if you cannot afford it. I am talking to folks who can handle it financially. You need to worry about your finances and your families first. Sheldon Hughes, of course, with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. We only need 2 more, guys. 99 cents. $1.99. A Patreon membership. Anything. Lisa KH is kind enough to tell me I'm next on the list. Come on, guys. 2 more. 2 more to show that, you care about what we're doing. You care about the fight we're fighting. I hate doing this. I don't like asking people for money, but I don't have liberal billionaires. This is the hand that we've been dealt, and we're going to talk to a liberal billionaire tomorrow on Substack. But I suspect that you all don't want to see me just kiss this person's butt and ask them real questions. Now, it may turn out that he's terrific, but it may turn out he's not. And if he's not, I'm not going to do it just to bring in funds. Sheldon Hughes with another $1. Okay. This is it, folks. Sheldon Hughes cannot give me any more money. I need somebody else. $1, 99 cents. Fred Bear, $2. Fred, you're fantastic. There we go. Thank you. Again, it's $4 or $5. Does it change the world? No. Does it add to what we're doing to change the world? Absolutely. It is all essential. Everything we raise here and we raise there, again, it goes into this. It goes into this. And this is not easy. Last thing I'll say, because Amethyst Pony obviously understands who I am, that Ben Franklin is just about my favorite person in the world. Founded the college I went to. Brilliant. Love him. I've read a number of books on him. Just came across a quote from Ben Franklin that is apropos of Booker. Well done is better than well said. Talk is cheap. Actions matter. Yeah. Well done is better than well said. So, you know what? Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to say it well. Messaging is important. But what you do, I may be here doing this stuff, but I was at the No Kings rallies. I'm there. I'm no different than anybody else. I'm just a member of the crowd there, but I'm just there doing my part, as we all should be. Fred Bear, my check comes tomorrow. Thank you. Honestly, if that puts you in any kind of a bad situation, I will give you the $2 back. I've told you the one thing I do not want with anybody is anybody putting themselves in a bind. But I think we are done. Hopefully this was an exciting episode for you. We had a really great guy on. Support Jeff Grammer. He's terrific. David Schuster goes without saying. Jim Williams, 20. Anthony Volpe may need Dr. Grammer's help. Jim, the 20 is amazing. Your comment was more amazing. The only thing you messed up in there, Jim, is there's no may in there. Please, we should have asked you and I, Jeff, always on, can you please help Anthony Volpe? Please, please just when the ball's coming towards him, just tell him to pick it up and throw it to the place, that would help. I truly appreciate that, Jim. And it upsets me that you even give that because you're already providing such an incredible service here. Thank you guys again. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Here, I'll even, I can even maybe give you the name if I need to. Oh, whatever. You know what? You don't need the name. You'll look him up. He's a California billionaire and he's running on the Democratic side. And he said a few things already that makes me think that we're going to have some disagreements during the interview. So as I said, get ready to check it out. But, I love doing these, and in a perfect world in the future where financials are not a worry for me, then I will do these every day because I love talking with you guys and I love talking about important things. So thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. Have a wonderful night. Find a way to relax. Turn everything off. MJ, I love you, Cliff. I love you too. Just we don't see eye to eye today. Okay, that's fine. We don't have to see. Isn't that what Jeff said? Kramer said? We don't have to see eye to eye and everything. That's what's important about this. It's a Democratic Party can get to the point where we're not seeing eye to eye, but we build a big coalition like we used to. We'll win. We shouldn't see eye to eye on everything. I promise you, Stephanie, Jeff Kramer is not a closet Republican. He's for universal health care. He is very pro-choice. He's in favor of some of the strictest gun control out there. He's very in favor of gay rights. He believes that he fought for unions and believed that unions should have much stronger rights. Again, I don't know which things you're picking, but don't think that someone's a closet Republican because maybe there are a couple issues he said there are the military and the police where he disagreed with you. I would disagree with him on the police. I used to have a positive opinion. Now I think, sadly, there's a lot more bad things I'm seeing than good things, but there are still good cops. There are, and you have to acknowledge that. The system is bad and must be reformed, and there's some bad folks among them. But again, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can disagree on some things if we have the same overall values, and I'm going to be preaching that forever. And David Cantu with the $10 super sticker out of nowhere. Thank you, David. You're awesome. Again, everybody who does that just makes all this a little bit easier because I didn't get into this to just load my pockets. We are trying to do something at Substack. We are trying to help other creators. We are trying to build an ecosystem. It ain't easy. So now, MS List Pony, my city is full of bad cops. Did you see the thing with the cops from Cincinnati here beating someone? I mean, there are some awful cops. Awful. They should be in prison. They should be gone. And then there's some terrific people too who have helped me in times of need. So I'm just going to end it on that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting what I do. Be there or be square, 2 p.m. tomorrow Eastern on Substack. And just be there to watch if I get in a fight with a billionaire. I mean, if that's not enough to get you there, I don't know what else is because I ain't going to back down. That's it. As the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I bid you a fond farewell.